Welcome back to another Post Media Senators One-on-One. I'm Bruce Garrioch. Pleased to be joined today by Kyle Bukauskas, the co-host of 32 Thoughts on Sportsnet and Hockey Night in Canada host, and covers the Senators very regularly here in Ottawa. Kyle, as I join you today, we are in the midst of a Mascot misstep here in Ottawa. Spartacat set off a firestorm. That I said to our friend Claire Anna today, that roar you heard in Ottawa yesterday, that didn't come from the Canadian Tire Center. That came from Senators fans roaring about that Lion wearing a Nordiques-Senators jersey. Are you surprised at the fallout?
Yeah, a little bit. Honestly, Bruce, I've been going back and forth here the last 24 hours because initially I'm like, who cares, But here's the thing, it's important to remember, again, I look at it through a different lens than those that are diehard Senators fans that pay money for tickets to go to games, that pay money for jerseys and merchandise and are emotionally invested into everything the team does. So they're naturally going to have a different reaction. And as you've talked about, and you well know, Bruce, this is a sensitive one with, Quebec City in particular, just because of, what went on in the waning years of the Eugene Melnyk era when he was owner of the team. So yeah, it was a triggering one. Cause I'm going the whole idea of could they really be looking at moving to Quebec City? Not a bloody chance.
No, there's no chance. No.
There's no way. And I understand, Cyril Leader was asked yesterday about, was there a clause in there when Michael Landauer took over the team that said, he can't move it? That doesn't matter. So long as Gary Bettman is around, no owner in the league can go, well, I'm packing up and heading elsewhere now. That's not how it works in the National Hockey League. So you don't need a clause saying you can't take the franchise anywhere. But the jersey thing is one thing. I can certainly empathize with the fans on the idea of, would they look at possibly putting regular season games there? And they're going, hold on a sec, no, we're okay having them. It's one thing if you're going to go overseas and try to grow the game in Europe or do something in Germany for the Tim Stützle connection and things like that. But for 4 hours up the road in that market there, preseason and exhibition and training camp is one thing, but regular season games, we'd like to have that in our own building. That I completely understand. So, I think if there's one thing that I kind of feel here at this moment in time, Bruce, that, maybe just the organization needed to be a little more aware of just how sensitive this was for this fan base. Maybe there's other fan bases where what happened, you gone, whatever, you move on, different set of circumstances here.
Well, totally different set of circumstances. I think what happened was, Mike Landauer hasn't made any missteps since he's become the owner of the Senators. I think that was a misstep, suggesting playing regular season games there, because I think that actually would have been okay, but I think Spartacat triggered something, and I think that Spartacat triggered well, if he's going to wear that jersey, are they going to wear that jersey down the road? As crazy as it sounds, I mean, we're talking about a big furry animal here who doesn't speak.
Yes, I know. So we'll never get a true understanding of how he feels about all this, the poor guy. I got to give Thomas Chabot a lot of credit. Man, did he do an admirable job today in fielding questions. Bravo on him, on a topic where you're going, this is silly in one hand, but obviously, your fan base is very passionate, feeling one way about all of this for the most part. It kind of reminded me he did his best Mark Borowiecki impression. Remember for years, the poor guy, anytime there was any type of controversy, we all went to Mark because he was the local guy that, could put some sense into the whole equation. So because, Chabot is a local to Quebec City and was there for the announcement on Monday, he was great in fielding questions from us today about it all.
Well, we'll let Spartacat lick his paws and worry about him later. But let's move on to the matters at hand, which is the Ottawa Senators, as we speak today, are sitting in a playoff spot. Now, they may not be in a playoff spot by the time they play the Washington Capitals on Thursday night, Kyle, but they're in the mix. And this is something we've been waiting for since 2017. What have you seen with this team under Travis Green?
Well, they're keeping their heads above water, stretches of the year, Bruce, wouldn't you say? I know November, again, didn't go perfect for them, but You think about the amount of time they were on the road in December, and just finishing up a really busy stretch of games here in January, where in years past, things would start to snowball on them, and the season got away from them, and they dug themselves too deep of a hole that they couldn't get out of. Now they're at least, keeping their heads above water and allowing themselves to stay in the fight. So it's been, I don't want to say a perfect storm because there's still a long way to go, but you got the combination of, a team taking tangible steps here. Like we've seen enough sample size this season where you're going like, no, this is a team that can hang with some of the better teams in the league and find a way to get results. And also too, like you mentioned, just how fluid things are, not only within, the conference, but their own division. Like nobody has really taken hold of things aside from, maybe the top teams. You look at Toronto's in a good spot. I know like Florida's right there, and Washington over in the Metro. But other than that, like there's a lot of teams just kind of hanging around. So it's allowed, a team like Ottawa to kind of pick themselves up off the mat after their month of November. And really over the last couple of months, Bruce, like I mentioned, things not snowballing. Like they're just not letting, the 2-3 game losing streaks go to 5 or 6. And I think typically that's the sign of a good team, right? When you look at the course of their game log over a whole season, how many 3 game losing streaks do you have versus how many 3 game winning streaks are greater? And right now they're doing a good job at having it swing the right way there and managing to, even when you go through a stretch where offense isn't where you would like it to be, to still get enough results where you remain in the conversation deeply.
One of the things that has surprised me, and I've pretty much said it to anybody who'd listen, is I'm surprised they're having so many problems scoring goals. And it's not like they're too defensive minded. I don't think that this is because Travis Green has hammered home defense so much that they can't score anymore. That's not it at all. But it does surprise me that heading into this week that they are gripping the stick so tightly.
Yeah, it's been. And I've looked into this a little bit, like you're right. And it's also interesting, Bruce, didn't you find like like Friday and Saturday going into that game against Toronto, Travis almost went on the offensive a little bit to really dispel the narrative of like we're this defensive first minded, like we only care about winning games 2-1. He really, like, he doesn't believe in that at all. Like he just wants to play a style that is sustainable and can actually lead to results in the playoffs. So between that and, I think they've had, certainly like puck luck and the shooting percentage hasn't been their friend. They've had a tough time, getting shots through. Like I know since, beginning of November, they've been one of the worst in the league of shot attempts being blocked. So is that just about decision-making or just the inability to find lanes through to the net and also rebound chances? Like it's just like too often they're one and done. And certainly in this league, as you know, that's where the real damage can occur because goaltenders are so good. Usually the first shot, they have a really good chance of stopping. So couple that between, like, again, you've got some good offensive players here, Bruce, on this team, as you know, but, in terms of the depth from an offensive perspective, it can get thin, quite quickly when you start to lose bodies. So when you've seen, the Amadios of the world go out for an extended period and now guys are playing up higher than they normally would, I think you're really starting to see that in terms of finding, cohesive trios that have the ability to play offensively and be dangerous over a longer period of time.
I know they're holding their scouting meetings this week in Ottawa, Kyle, and I think one of the things that they're proud, this will set them up for the trade deadline. I think if you, as you and I speak, I think that if we thought there were 2 things this team needs, I think number one, we'd say another top 6 forward, and I think either a 5th or 6th defenseman. What are your feelings going into the deadline for this club?
Yeah, no question, finding some scoring. I'm just really, as we've seen, a couple of transactions already here of late around the league, like how that affects, everything else. Now, I don't think for a second, Ottawa's looking, trying to find a Mikko Rantanen type player to bring into the fold, but you never know. But scoring, you would think has to be a priority here for now, and not just because, it's been a bit of a dry spell in January. I think it's only going to get tougher here as they go along. So to have another piece to help complement what they have in house, I think will go a long way for a team where you're sitting here going like, because this team is, I think, has earned a push,
Yes. Yes, for sure.
something from Steve Staios to get an injection of life. Whether it's say a defenseman to help things or scoring seems to be the priority right now. But don't you feel, Bruce, like Steve, to me, and I don't profess to know him particularly well, beyond, what we see here when he's, addressing the media and things like that. But he seems like, a guy who very much can kind of operate under the guise of, okay, buyer's remorse. You know what I mean? And I only say that because like I'm very much like that in a lot of my life decisions. I can only imagine as a general manager of a hockey team, where you're just careful about, okay, you want to make things happen to make your team better, but man, what if it doesn't go well? And are you a little bit gun shy that way? I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, and I'm with you on that. I think that moves us to our next subject. Really, is Linus Ullmark.
Mm-hmm.
He first visited the Linus Ullmark deal at the deadline, right?
Yes.
And didn't make the deal until just an hour before you guys were in Florida to draw the puck for Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final.
I think it was even less than that, yeah.
Yeah, it might have been 45 minutes. But all that to say, though, Kyle, you're right. Like, that's the way he operates. He leaves no stone unturned. And I do know from speaking to other teams that he does a lot of talking. He's aggressive in his pursuit of players, but I think when push comes to shove, there's that part of him that needs to get the deal over the finish line. So, see, the thing is, we're 10 days away from that Four Nations face-off break, and that leads me into where I want to go next, and that was with Linus Ullmark. I would anticipate if we don't see Linus Ullmark against the Washington Capitals, and there are no setbacks, I would think we'd see him Saturday against the Minnesota Wild. First of all, you are surprised he's been out this long, and I'll go to my second question now so that you can cover both in one shot here. Would you allow him to play in the Four Nations? Because I've stated that they're having seen Dominik Hasek in 2006, the Olympics, with an adductor. I don't think you should want it to happen, but you go where you want.
Yeah, no, am I surprised? I mean, I guess I just don't know all the specific details of the injury to really be able to say like, well, you'd think it would be back by now, but it was interesting. I mean, I think you pointed out like early on where, I mean, his gear wasn't even in his stall for a while, so you knew it was going to be a bit of time for him if that was the route things were going in the early stages here. But in terms of the Four Nations, it's a tough one, like, because really if the player wants to play, by and large, like the team
you can't
really do a ton to stop him. Like you can't, especially I can only imagine like Sweden's going, okay, we've already lost Jacob Markstrom here, and I know it's not the Olympics. This is just a little taste of international hockey, before Milan next year. But it's a fascinating one. And the part of the thing too, like we see Pietrangelo has pulled out already. He's going dealing with an injury, wants that time to rest and recover, and that's all fine. But as we get closer here, and naturally the conversation is only going to pick up about certain players in specific markets about, well, are we really sure about this player going to this event? And, how does that hurt the chances, the risk of something happening? Everyone signed up for this event to happen in February. Like, you knew this was a possibility, so you can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
Like if you're gonna go in and say this is going to be an event that we're going to have in February, even though there's not an Olympic gold medal being handed out at the end, you've got to give the best players, those that are selected for this, every opportunity to play. Now, if they're hurt, that's one thing, but if they feel they're up to it and they want to go, the teams can't stand in the way of that.
I guess the other side of the coin to that, though, Kyle, is that he's missed over 30 days, so maybe the playing time during that break, maybe that playing time during the break wouldn't hurt him either, as long as he doesn't get hurt.
Well, that's the thing. Like, of course, because the thing, it's not like this came out of nowhere. I mean, the injury storyline, right from training camp has been part of Linus, his first tenure here with the Sens. You're right.
Well, as they head down the stretch, do you feel like with 30 games left, they are going to stay in the mix?
Yeah, of course. Like just because, again, you look at how many teams are just kind of similar to them in that, they've got
It's
some
the
really good
mushy
things
middle,
going for
right?
them. Right. But like the fact that no one separated
But
themselves, like the
yeah,
mushy middle could get you into the playoffs here. So like now you're looking around, even, Tampa's leaked a little bit of oil here of late, which I think has opened the door for, I know they've played less games than everybody else still. But it's opened the door for, as you say, as we record this, they're sitting in third in the Atlantic. I didn't think that was going to be a possibility for this team this year. But because of where everyone else is at, it's given them the opportunity to do so. So I don't see, they haven't shown anything yet where they're going like, yeah, they're going to run out of juice and the wheels are going to fall off of this thing. Between them and everybody else, they've got good things and they also have their flaws, and I think that just could only lead to a real compelling finish here as we go down the stretch. And the question is just how many teams can stay with it right up until game 82.
well, it wasn't 32 thoughts, but we got some great ones from Kyle Bukauskas of Sportsnet today. Really appreciate you joining us. Now, when I hang up from you, I'm going to order us a couple of Nordiques Yetis.
Yes, look forward to it. Thanks, Bruce.